Hello, my name is Kathleen Larsen, and I'm going to be doing my presentation on Christian ethics and finding a biblical perspective in the world that we live in. I'm going to be going over my Christian ethics and biblical perspective and verses that guide the way that I believe and the way that I believe that we should treat ethical issues. Ethical issues that I gained more knowledge about that I will be going over is homosexuality, abortion, and physician-assisted suicide. I will be going over a case study of an ethical issue that arose when I was studying physician-assisted suicide and covering an ethical issue that I still am unclear about and undecided about. My personal ethics, Christian ethics in Bible verses pertain to love, humility, self-reflection, and judgment. I believe that to maintain an ethical treatment of others, you must hold fast to your values and morals while not passing judgment on others. You must love them wholly as they are, even if you disagree with their moral reasoning. We as Christians serve others. When we as Christians serve others, regardless of their morals and beliefs, we must do so with humility and love without our pride. God calls us to reflect on ourselves because we do not stand in a position, nor do we have the authority to judge others. My verses are Romans 12:9 through 10 for love. Humility is covered in Matthew 6:1 through 4. In self-reflection, I have Romans 12:3 and Matthew 7:5. My first ethical issue that I gain more knowledge about is homosexuality. Homosexuality, arguments that are in support of them, according to Ray 2009, suggests that the Metropolitan Church insists that the account of Sodom and Gomorrah are not representative of the kind of homosexual relationships that they support. Since what occurred in Genesis 19 and 20 is gang rape, not consensual sex. In the writings of Paul in the New Testament, address perversions of homosexuality, such as homosexuality is an expression of dominance over someone and homosexual religious prostitution. That's in Kindle Location 5843. They support homosexuality in the light of loving, committed relationships. I believe that falls under the utilitarian theory that dictates that anything that brings happiness is good. Any action that brings happiness is good. So if they can come to a point where they're accepted everywhere and that they see it as a loving relationship and they can enter these without the pressure of people judging them, then that would bring them happiness, is how they feel. So I believe that that's why they're fighting for the church's support. But arguments against it, the biblical response in both the New and the Old Testament call it a detestable act. God is clear in both testaments that the meaning of homosexuality goes against his creation. It goes against procreation. The meaning a man with a man or a woman with a woman is in a sexual relationship is forbidden. The Bible is clear that one will not enter the kingdom of God if they engage in the practice of homosexuality, which is said in 1 Corinthians 6:9. Homosexuality is not less than or worse than any other sin. It is equal to and therefore receives the same consequence, which is not inheriting the kingdom of God. Abortion is another issue that I looked at, and the arguments for and in support of abortion, according to Ray, in his book written in 2009, Roe v. Wade, 1973, determined the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, which protects a person's right to privacy, was extended to a woman's womb, allowing her the right to end her pregnancy. That's in Kindle Location 2530. The right to privacy removes all obligation to disclose the intent behind the abortion. A woman can many arguments that you see, many reasons for abortion are, for one, she has the right to choose. It'll create financial hardships. It will change their life too drastically. They also debate that the fetus is not considered a life because it has not left the womb and has taken its first breath. And they also look at medical necessity. Is it gonna be hazardous to the mother or the infant's health? And then make a decision from there. But again, that right to privacy removes all obligation for her to expose her true motives, her true motivation behind it. She can just go in and get an abortion for any reason, as far as I'm understanding and concerned. Arguments in opposition of abortion is, as Christ says, as God says, thou shalt not murder, which when they look at their financial situation and the way that it's going to change their life, I have a hard time seeing and understanding, even though you should treat them with love and humility and reflect on yourself and without judgment first, knowing that they're in a situation you don't understand. I believe that they are making a premeditated decision, which is taking the life of another. Ray explained that ethical egoism is a theory that the morality of an act is determined by one's self-interest. In the issue of abortion, I believe that this is enough evidence that the argument in support of abortion is based on a woman's self-interest and not the baby's. Biblically, God's creation is about a higher purpose, not man's self-interest. God molds and nurtures an unborn child, which is seen in Psalms 139, 13 through 16. And with abortion, a man or a woman's self-interest can destroy it, according to ethical egotism. The next ethical issue that I have gained more information on is physician-assisted suicide. After watching How to Die in Oregon a year ago, I was left with a lot of questions whether or not it was ethical. And arguments suggest that happiness is gained in death according to the utilitarian theory. And I believe that that's what they see. The end of suffering and the end of pain will lead to more happiness. And it is physician-assisted suicide is available in a few states to people that are terminally ill. And a huge debate justifying it is, why are we more compassionate to our animals than we are to each other? Why will we put our dog down but not help our grandmother? Arguments in opposition of physician-assisted suicide is that death is a part of the fall of man and a result of our sin. God determines how and when our life will end. The termination of life support is an example of playing God, according to Ray, Kindle location 4454. Physician-assisted suicide, there was a Supreme Court ruling on the importance of pain relief and suffering, which may open up options to other states for physician-assisted suicide. But when will the right to death interfere with the right to live? This leads to the ethical issue that I came across. There are multiple people receiving insurance letters in Oregon. These insurance agencies are denying the cost coverage for life-expanding treatment with pain medications to provide comfort and instead offer a physician-assisted suicide. While the right to death with dignity has been granted to the people of Oregon, it has become a death sentence for those who wish to add just a few more days to their life because they can't afford it. The ethical concern is that insurance agencies have taken the initiative to override the doctor's recommendation and patient's desire and instead offer to terminate the patient altogether. And how would I help? First, I think it's important to figure out what the ethical grounds lead the agencies to believe that they're in a position to make such a decision. I believe that it's important to contact a human rights, to start by contacting a human rights advocate with the information regarding the case, push the situation into the public spotlight to put as much pressure on the insurance agency as possible. I believe this is another example of ethical egoism where the best interest of the insurance company is above the best interest of their life. And I believe the best way that we can help them is by pushing the issue into the spotlight. The only issue that I'm still confused about and haven't gained a perspective on is reproductive technologies being an ethical concern. I believe that if God is the creator, even if multiple babies are conceived due to fertility treatment, I believe God will still manage the course it will take and care for each baby, whether they perish or reach life. I believe that is in God's hands, and I don't believe it's up to us to make the decision to abort some to make sure others live. I believe that God will take care of that. This concludes my presentation, and I hope that I covered everything clearly enough. Thank you so much.